season's greetings from us at DBS.
Hi, I'm Candy Nicholas, wellness journalist and certified holistic health coach, and this is your invitation to join us every Monday right here on DBS TV for my show, The Wellnest with Candy Nicholas. This is your invitation to join our community where we will have lively educational discussions about lifestyle practices and how they can impact your body, your mind, and your soul. So please join the conversation. It's going to be fun, it's going to be educational, and we will have experts in the field discussing everything you want to know about wellness and living well right here on The Wellnest with Candy Nicholas. And welcome to The Wellnest. I am your host, Candy Nicholas, and it is an absolute pleasure to be here with you once again. I've been getting your feedback, and I am so happy that I'm making an impact. So welcome again. And today we're going to touch on a very unique topic which I haven't seen or heard explored in the way that it should be. And this will just be a scratching the surface of this discussion. And the discussion is about the connection between crime, and I don't have to go into what the situation with crime is in our country right now. I know you know it. But the connection between crime and our health and safety. And there are many connections which we, based on some of the videos that I see, clearly do not think about, including some of the things that can happen on a crime scene. But we're going to go much deeper into this conversation, and to help us do so is Fernanda Henry. She is a forensic scientist. I've known her for a long time. I don't mean to age her, but she taught me. But she's not that much older than I am, maybe a couple of years, because we were at school together. Yes. Then she left and came back as my teacher. Excellent. So she's not that much older than I am. So welcome to The Wellness, Miss Henry. Fernanda.
Thank you for
what
having me, Candy.
Fernanda. Okay. Yes, so you are a forensic scientist.
Yes.
What does that mean to someone who has never heard the term, or maybe has heard it but never fully understood what it means? Maybe they know it's something to do with crime, but they don't know exactly what it has to do with crime.
Sure. Well, forensics means the application of science to law. So it means applying something to law. In our case, there are many different scientific fields that we can apply to law. So there's forensic psychology, there is forensic biology, forensic chemistry, that you can apply physics, to law. Basically, almost anything can have a legal application, especially if it needs to be aired in the context of a criminal matter. Yes.
Okay, so your role is to help solve crime through science.
Through science.
So what does that look like in the context of the St. Lucian Society and what we have going on right now? We know, as I said in my preamble, we know what the situation is with the killings and a lot of the other criminal activity that is happening. So what does your job look like in a St. Lucian context?
Well, I'm lucky to be able to exercise, my skill as a forensic scientist. My day job is working at the Forensic Science Laboratory, and I wear many hats there. One of those would be to work as a DNA analyst, and which is very exciting, very fascinating.
What does that involve?
Well, it's really looking at body fluids and trying to identify the source of the body fluid, the contributor, i.e. the person, really, the human who contributed body fluids or cells. We work with a lot of cells these days. We call that touch DNA because the surface of our skin has cells on it, and because we come into contact with things on a regular basis, we leave those cells behind. And we'll be talking about that in the context of safety and what we tend as St. Lucians to do when we are at a crime scene, you know, so that's important too, understanding how we can leave some of ourselves behind.
And implicate ourselves
And
in something we were
implicate
just being
ourselves.
nosy about.
Exactly,
Oh,
which
dear.
which should not be what we want at all. We don't want to be placed somewhere that we had no business in.
So you spoke about the, you know, our skin or the surface of our hands, leaving some evidence of our being at the
Yes,
scene
our
behind.
identity.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are some of these other fluids or things that we can leave behind that would place us at those crime scenes?
Well, when we approach those crime scenes, we're talking, you know, we you know, we like to gesticulate a lot, you know. St. Lucians are very, very, you know,
I'm
expressive
guilty. If you
people.
tie my hands, I start to stutter. I need to-
Exactly. And then, you know, we would inadvertently, you know, spit. You know, and that, I know we probably don't even think about it, but we can leave our spit behind at a crime scene just because we're there, you know, talking, expressing ourselves. You know,
So
sometimes
just from
I see
normal
people
conversation or,
yes,
or from actually like
from normal
spitting?
conversation,
Oh, wow.
Candy, it can happen. And then, you know, sometimes I see a lot of people are aggressive at crime scenes, whether they're exhibiting aggression to the police officers. You know, people who are trying to help, sometimes, you know, they're aggressive, maybe sometimes in trying to get people away too. But, you know, you can leave your spit behind in a situation like that as well.
So your spit, what else? I mean, you spoke of bodily fluids. Maybe
Yes.
if you're crying.
If you're crying,
Okay.
absolutely,
Oh,
yes,
wow.
because we can. The cells will be in our tear duct, where our tears come from, is made up of cells, and as we're crying, those, we call them epithelial cells, are being shed with our tears.
Okay, what about if you happen to have a cold and you blow your nose
And you
this-
sneeze, yes,
yeah,
you
or
blow your
sneeze.
nose, you leave the tissue behind. You know, you just drop it. You know, we're not the best at finding a garbage bin to
No, we
leave
have no idea how
our
to do
garbage
that,
behind.
no.
Or if you know, in that context too, if we had something, we were consuming something, maybe a drink, maybe we had, I don't know, I wouldn't want to say an apple per se, but you know, maybe we were eating something, a sandwich or something, you know, and then you just casually just discard that, you know, thinking that you're leaving the crime scene, so to speak, but you are leaving yourself behind.
Wow, that is really good. I mean, I knew this, but hearing this from you and how little of the bodily fluids that you need to,
Yes.
you now have me rethinking how I
Very
exist
good.
in spaces. Maybe some I shouldn't be at.
Right. Yes, which is good. You know, I
Yeah.
think it's good to consider.
Yes. Yeah. So we see all these people because, of course, with smartphones and
Yes.
social media and all
That's
of that,
right.
a lot of us, even though we try, we can't escape
Yes.
some of these videos. And in those videos, I can't help but note that, as you were saying, there are people who seem to be very active and very vibrant and very involved
Yes.
at these crime scenes. You see people touching
Yes.
the victims,
Yes.
jumping over them, recording them.
Yes.
What impact or effect does that have on your assessment of the crime scene, first of all? And then I'm going to ask you how it can affect the individuals, because I'm sure that
Right.
there are some, you know, if you're talking about all these cells being
Yes.
left behind,
Right,
I'm sure
and
that
body
there are things
fluids.
that you can pick up which you'd rather leave down.
Certainly.
So,
Certainly. Well, you see, anytime someone interferes with a crime scene, and we call it interference because it means that you are now introducing something to the scene that was not there before. So just by virtue of you being there, or by virtue of you doing something there, so you come close enough for you to get video footage, or you jump over the victim, or you are taking things away. You know, I've seen some videos where people are actually removing
yes.
things
Yeah.
from a victim. So you are altering the crime scene in some way, and at the same time leaving a bit of yourself, right? Which I don't think that is the desired outcome, because if you were not involved in the matter, then you really don't want to be found there. So interfering with the crime scene is significant for us because it will lead to contamination. So that is removing something from the scene, or putting something that wasn't there before. And we have to, St. Lucians really need to be careful of that, because as we talked about a while ago, it's so easy for you to do that in any way, shape or form, but to intentionally do it makes it more difficult for the crime scene officer to be able to process, because when you come into a scene, you do a survey, you weren't there, you didn't witness what happened. So you're doing a survey for you to understand, well, where do I begin? You try to understand what's important here, what isn't, what might play a role in telling the story of what happened here, and what doesn't. So when someone introduces something that is foreign to the scene, that is interpreted as being part of the scene.
And
it complicates things.
Has there ever been a situation that you're aware of, either here or elsewhere, where someone was placed at a crime scene and maybe was arrested or questioned or whatever, when they had absolutely nothing to do with the situation? They were just there being nosy, as I said earlier.
Well, it's more, I think what it does is it complicates the interpretation of information that we are able to find at the crime scene. So usually when people come and they interfere with the scene, we don't really know who is interfering. So they're complicating things by adding more, for example, with respect to DNA, adding more DNA information than is necessary to be there. So we may end up getting mixtures of several people, some of whom we may never know, because for us to be able to make any sort of identifications, we have to have a reference sample. So someone who comes and leaves, the police may not necessarily know who that person is, so they would not have been able to take a reference sample. Or alternatively, someone may identify someone. Someone may say, well, X or Y may have been the person I saw and they interfered with the scene, and now the police are coming to knock on your door to ask you, well, what were you doing? For you to explain yourself. And yes, in that case, a reference sample would be taken, because now that individual has to be eliminated as a potential source of information at the scene.
And we hear the word DNA. What is DNA? If you were to explain to a 5-year-old what DNA is, what would you say?
I would tell a 5-year-old that DNA is the material inside of your cells that determines everything about you. And you inherit it from your mommy and your daddy. They are the two individuals who will determine what you look like, how tall you are, what diseases you might have, what sort of illnesses you may suffer from. For example, whether you are anemic, whether you have sickle cell anemia, or whether you just carry the trait where you don't necessarily exhibit any, of those extreme symptoms. DNA is the material that tells you, that will determine whether your eyes are brown or green. Black people can have green eyes or blue eyes too. Whether you and from everything to how well you perform at school. Maybe your IQ level, so to speak. Yeah, so that is really what DNA is.
To you.
It
so
is
everybody
unique
has
to
their
you.
own.
Well, identical twins share DNA,
right.
yes, but the science actually had to evolve for us to be able to distinguish identical twins. It's not like a fingerprint. Fingerprints are unique. No two people have the same fingerprints, but two people can have the same DNA. So the industry kind of had to work around that to try to understand how we can distinguish identical twins from one another.
Before the science evolved around that, how many twins took the fall?
I'm sure it happened. Absolutely.
For the other, and did so willingly, because a lot of what I hear about twins is, they're so connected and bonded that they
could do that.
Happily take the fall.
I have no doubt. Yes.
Meanwhile, the guilty one is out there.
Indeed.
Still causing
I'm sure
trouble.
it may have happened.
Yeah. So, all right, bodily fluids, diseases, biohazards at a crime scene. So in one way, you don't want to leave yours behind to be implicated in something that you didn't know, as I said again, because you're being nosy.
Right.
But what are some of the dangers of being at that crime scene? A lot of the time there's blood, if not all of the time.
Yes.
Or, other bodily fluids that may come out of people after they died or whatever. So what are some of the dangers of being exposed to that as an innocent bystander?
Yes. Well, you mentioned blood, and let's start there. So we blood carries pathogens. Pathogens are disease-causing agents, organisms, if you will, that carry disease. So there are three that that we are careful about when we deal with blood or have to encounter blood at a crime scene. Those three are hepatitis A, hepatitis B, and HIV, aka AIDS, right? HIV can lead to AIDS, yes. So hepatitis A and B affect the liver, and so your liver can literally shut down because you have contracted hepatitis A or B by being exposed to pathogens in someone's blood. And of course, we can contract HIV if the blood gets into any of our mucous membranes. And by that I mean, so if you there was a speck of blood, or let's say you went over and you tried to take something from a victim, and some of the blood was on your hand. Now you go and you rub your eyes, right? You're transferring any disease-causing organism into the mucous membrane of your eyes, and that is how the organism can enter into your bloodstream. Yeah, or if you have an open wound, right? You have an open cut, and it encounters, maybe that person's blood may encounter that open wound. Maybe it's not covered, you know, because we might think we tend to not use plasters on a paper cut, or a plaster on, you know, a little scratch or something that you got, but it's still an open wound.
Cause things to be
Exactly. Or it may be that your clothing becomes gets into contact with the bloodied item or the bloodied scene, and then you have that open wound under your clothes, and you might think, well, I have a pants on, right? But the blood got on your pants, and now the blood is sitting there and it soaks through. Yes, and you're exposed to that.
Oh boy, things that you wouldn't consider, right? Okay, we're gonna take a quick break. I need to process this information, and as I'm sure you do too, and we will be right back. This is The Wellness. I'm Candy Nicholas. Here with us today is Fernanda Henry. See you after the break. Welcome back. This is The Wellness. I'm Candy Nicholas. Today we're being joined by forensic scientist Fernanda Henry, and we're talking about something that a lot of us don't think about, the connection between crime and crime scenes and our health. There's a lot of crime happening. That's an inescapable fact, and we need to learn how to behave at crime scenes. I mean, ideally we don't want to be at crime scenes, but if we are, there are ways that it can affect our health that we don't think about. So Fernanda is here with us today, helping us to break that down. And if you're just joining us, we spoke about the different bodily fluids that may be present at a crime scene and how that can affect our health negatively if there's a presence of pathogens. So we're going to continue along that line for now. And we spoke about hepatitis A and B. We spoke about HIV, which can lead to AIDS, and we spoke about the different ways that, you know, handling or touching the blood, whether deliberately or otherwise, can cause it to get into our bodies. What are some of the other things we need to be mindful of at crime scenes? We need to be mindful of what is present at the crime scene, and I mean just objects, simple objects. So one of the things I've also observed happening at crime scenes, and all of this through social media, you know, just through random people taking video footage of what's going on at the scene. I've seen people pick up shell casings, and I've seen people try to interfere with weapons that they may find. And for example, a knife, you know, if you try to handle a knife, and you may inadvertently hurt yourself, you get harmed, you get cut by this object, or you're taking a casing and again, because it has sharp edges and there would have been an explosion of some sort which deforms the metal, you can get cut. So, you know, and
not only are you leaving, you know, yourself behind, but you're also now increasing the likelihood of you now being affected by something that might be at the crime scene.
What would be, to your knowledge, some of the reasons that people would try to pick those things up? I guess evidence tampering to protect.
Well, it boils down
themselves
to
or others?
evidence tampering. Eventually, you know, and the crux of it is evidence tampering. But I think so too that some people are curious. You know, some people are curious and they venture onto the crime scene simply because they have the opportunity to, and then others do it intentionally to remove evidence. You know, yes, and take it away from the scene for whatever, you know, personal reason that might be. Yes.
What are some of the other physical or potential physical harms that can occur at a crime scene?
Well,
to the bystanders.
yeah. Well, you know, I I think, you know, it sounds so strange that we're talking about it. Like, you know, it's almost like people want to be at crime scenes, which is strange because I think I remember the reason why I became a forensic scientist, and I remember what my encounter was, which formulated my decision to study forensic science. There was an accident near my home, and it involved one of my best friends. Her mom had a motor vehicular collision, but there was an individual involved, poorly lit road, and the gentleman may have been under the influence and venturing into the road, you know. And so there was a collision, and when I got to the scene, what I encountered, I remember CSI. It was, you know, CSI was new, and because I love science, I was drawn to that
You
show.
mean the show?
Yes, the show CSI. Yes, and you know, I got there, and almost the whole community had descended upon this crime scene, right? And people were all over the vehicle, and you know, and they wanted to see the person on the ground, and you know, and I thought, but you know, how is it that we have this tendency to gravitate to the crime scene as opposed to away from it, you know, so that we can stay at a safe distance and, you know, and let the people who should be there, you know, handle what's going on. But we naturally gravitate to it, and so I observed, you know, people doing things that I didn't see on CSI, and it bothered me. And I remember that we were waiting for a little while, and I asked the officer who had the first responder, I said, well, why are we waiting? And they said, well, we were waiting for somebody to take the pictures. And I thought, well, you know, is there only one person taking the pictures, you know, when these things happen? And I thought, well, I should go to school to learn how to do this, you know, so that let me go learn to take the pictures so that, you know, people are not waiting this long. But I saw St. Lucians naturally gravitate to a crime scene, and that was because of curiosity and without understanding, you know, how they could implicate themselves or how they could make it difficult, you know, to help to understand what happened here, which is necessary for a victim, which is necessary for anyone who is involved in that particular matter. It's important for all parties to understand, you know, what happened. And when we come into the scene and we do what we want there without being aware of that, then we manipulate it and we affect the outcome somehow.
And from that moment where you had this, Oprah calls it an aha moment,
Yes.
when you had that aha moment, what has it looked like up to today?
Well, not much has changed, but I think the dangers have. I think because of the type of crime that we are experiencing now, especially gun-related crime, I think the dangers have increased because, you know, you come to a crime scene, but when you hear gunshots and instead of running, you know, in the opposite direction, you're running towards it, and you're not sure that all the gunfire has ceased. You understand? So what are we rushing to? You know? So we have to be mindful of that. And if two people had, you know, there was a physical altercation, again, we're not sure that all of you know, the aggression, all of that has been quelled, or, you know, or that people are calm enough, you understand, for us to get involved to the point where we are not now turned upon and hurt in the process. Or, you know, I hear of people who suffer from mental illness, and they, you know, and they are being violent because by throwing rocks, or, you know, and then here we are rushing to this, and the danger is still very present and real, and we could, you know, we could get hurt. So we really do need to learn to take that step back. The right thing to do would be to pick up the phone and call for help. That is the right thing to do. We're not trained in crime scene, you know, investigation. We're not trained as first responders. We're not trained as police officers. You know, is this role clarity, you know, thing that we lack in St. Lucia, you know, and that's a big blue, big blue. So let's let those people do their work. They know what they're doing, you know, and let, you know, we can stand on the side, and we can maybe observe, and if, you know, that we have any constructive suggestions, make suggestions, you know, or give kudos. Yes, you know, I think that we would better serve the situation that way than in trying to get involved and play a role that is clearly not ours to play.
Yes. And on that note, we spoke about how we could get infected if, you know, we're touching things and doing things on a crime scene. Is there any situation where the person who isn't the victim, or the people who are not the victims, have affected the chances of recovery of a victim who is obviously still alive because they contaminated the individual? So let's say someone has an open wound and maybe, you know, you're speaking and there are pathogens in your saliva or other bodily fluids, or you're crying over the person, and I mean, this may sound extreme, maybe not to you. So let me set the scene here. Someone has been injured gravely.
Yes.
I am a pathogen, let me not put that on myself. Someone is a pathogen carrying or pathogen carrier. They go and they're speaking over the person, or they are trying to help, and they get cut. And how do we have any examples of that?
I don't think we have any examples. I certainly don't have any examples of that. So I'm not aware that that has ever happened. But I can definitely see how it's definitely possible. But also, I think that when what came to mind as you were describing, you know, your scenario, was how we can be so involved that we delay, you know, the delivery of emergency care to a person. So, you know, I can see how, again, from these videos, how, you know, people crying at a crime scene over a victim, or you know, how that can because, you know, these people are so inconsolable. It's hard to get them away from the person who's injured, so that the emergency care personnel can come in. You know, I can see that from videos I've seen, just people sobbing, and understandably so. You know, it's a traumatic event. You know, so and you're thinking that all you're thinking is, oh my God, this person is injured, and you really want them to get help. You know, but you don't realize that you are now in the way of them getting help, simply because you're where you are in relation to the crime scene, and preventing or delaying that care from reaching the individual who needs it. Yes.
Now, we spoke about roles and the clear demarcation of roles between those who have nothing to contribute at a crime scene and should stand back, and these individuals who are trained.
Yes.
Obviously, they are exposed to some of those potential pathogens that we spoke about. How do they preclude any exposure to maybe through protective gear or otherwise? What are some of the ways that our police officers, our emergency responders, and others, what are some of the steps that, in your professional opinion, should and are taken to prevent?
Well, I think that is part of our primary training. That's the foundation of, you know, of crime scene investigation work, or forensic training, period, is that concept of safety and understanding the biohazards of the job. So to mitigate that, we have personal protective equipment, and that is a broad term for several things. It includes gloves, it includes wearing that Tyvek, that white full body suit that you see crime scene officers or investigators wearing. It's called a Tyvek suit. It is budget, semi-breathable, I'd say. I wouldn't say it's breathable material, or probably not breathable at all, because you know, you sweat buckets under there. But what that does, it gives you that protection from head to toe, so that you know no part of you is exposed to the scene, because we don't want to leave ourselves there, but we also want to protect ourselves from what might be there, right? So there's gloves, there's your Tyvek suit, and if your suit, not all suits have hoods, so we wear hairnets if that is the case. Not all suits have boots, so we wear shoe covers, you know, where it is lacking. Then we have goggles, and I think that sometimes people take goggles for granted. You know, we don't appreciate that our eyes are an entryway, you know, to blood, and because of that, then goggles help to protect your eyes from those biohazards that you encounter at the scene.
It may sound like a silly question, but there are obvious things, and you know, semi-obvious, and then some not so obvious ones. So, what about airs? Are there any benefits to covering the airs?
Yes, certainly, absolutely. And again, it depends on the context. So when you're in the workplace, we mostly cover our airs as a workplace safety mechanism. People who work in firearms units, then they use air covers in the form of head, what do you call them, muffs, I guess? Yes, to protect their ears from the loud sounds when handling firearms. So yes, we definitely have to, because you know the workplace exposes us to all of those dangers, so to speak, that can affect our health. And then we have the face mask as well. So we use, again, that too, I think, you know, is also taken for granted, but COVID definitely taught us the value of a face mask. So we really use those a lot. Fires, in instances where, and I use them all the time, you know, just in regular laboratory work, because again, your mouth is another entry, and so is your nose another, you know, so all those entry points where disease causing organisms can enter, you want to make sure those are sufficiently covered so that you're not at risk.
And who are the people wearing this? Anybody with access to the crime scene?
Yes.
So police officers?
Yes, emergency personnel, the crime scene investigators, certainly, who will spend a lot of time at the crime scene. Handling things, yes, exactly. And also, the mask allows you to talk at the crime scene. You know, you're working with a colleague that you have to communicate. People are entering and, you know, and exiting your crime scene. So, you know, we should never take for granted that remember we talked about it, that just passive conversation spits can, you know, So we cover our face, and we cover our nose and mouth with the face mask, so that we can mitigate against that.
Okay, on that note, we are due for another quick break. Yes, we are. So we will be right back. This is The Wellness. I'm Candy Nicholas. And welcome back to The Wellness. My name is Candy Nicholas, and we're speaking about crime and its implications on our health as a society. And here to do that with us today, if you're just joining us, is Fernanda Henry. She is a forensic scientist. So we've spoken about a lot of the physical ramifications of exposing and being exposed to, or exposing things to crime scenes. But something I wanted to touch on was, you know, the mental, emotional, spiritual hazards that come with being at a crime scene, because all of these things are part of our overall health, even if we choose to ignore them sometimes. And one of the ways that I think I personally have been affected. I try to share with y'all, and you'll take my words out of context sometimes, but I'll share anyway. I have to deal with y'all about something else about the last show, but I digress. So I'll tell you what it is. So I had a doctor on speaking about breast cancer.
Okay.
And I made reference to a lump that I had checked.
Okay.
So I'm being told that I have breast cancer. I don't have breast cancer.
Oh my!
y'all.
How?
Don't call that on
Yes,
me.
I think the inference went too far.
It went a little too far.
Yes.
Yes. So let's bring it back. So I'm
Yes.
about to give a personal example of how I feel about crime, and
Yes.
and how I also know some other people like I know
Yes.
feel where it has gotten in the way of us socializing as much as we would like to.
I would agree.
Yeah, because you just never know what's going to happen,
Yes.
when and where. And yes, anything can happen anywhere, including in our homes.
Yes.
But sometimes we try to control what we can. So if
Yes.
there's somewhere that I don't have to be,
Yes.
I don't go there.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the impact that it's having on us
Yes.
individually and collectively as a society?
Well, I can speak personally. I've been a forensic scientist for the last 17 years. And while I love my job, I love being able to serve. That's really the whole purpose for me of being a forensic scientist. To serve St. Lucia, I felt that we didn't have enough of that service around, and I wanted to be able to contribute meaningfully that way. I think that over the years that my mind works a little differently because of the things that I've been exposed to, and I try as best as I can to leave work.
at work.
Yes, at work. I certainly do not take work home. I do not take work home. But when I close that door, when it closes behind me, then everything stays there. But I think over the years, encountering these crime scenes and understanding the story, that it has, I think, it has deepened my spirituality. I can definitely say that. I remember my first post-mortem, my first autopsy experience. And I walked into it was with Dr. Stephen King. And I remember watching, them remove every single body part from the individual. And then when they got to the skull, I remember, them removing the cranium and taking out the brain, and I looked into the vault, and you know what came to me? I thought to myself, wow, I don't want anybody to ever tell me that my head is empty. and I made a mental note never to tell anybody. Yes, because Candy, empty it is. It's empty. It is, and I thought to myself, well, wow, that's really not a good thing. It's really not good to tell somebody that their head is empty. And I think I thought after that. So it was very important to me not to, to make sure not to say that, yes, to any student. But that whole process, just witnessing that, made me understand the Creator, the person, the being that I connect to as Creator. And I thought, my God, you are amazing. And because the body is just so well put together, it is only by design. That is magnificent design, because after every single body part was removed, Candy, it could not be put back the same way.
Exactly, yeah.
So that it absolutely deepened my spirituality. So I'm a scientist who loves God. You hear? I'm a scientist who exists because of God. So I'm a scientist who understands God's role in everything. God is the reason for it all for me. And then so that also helps me to deal with, my spiritual self helps me to deal with the horror. Yes,
because
the
it
horror.
must be a lot of horror to encounter
Yes.
all the time, especially.
Yes.
I wouldn't imagine that there are a lot of you. Tell us about your department, or the people
The people
or
I work
support
with.
systems.
Yes. Yes, well, a lot of us are female, and you know, and they too, you know, have their own experiences. You know, I'm sure they would be happy to share with you, but you know, they aren't. As a matter of fact, we only had one male forensic scientist on staff with us. And he just recently retired.
Wow.
Yes, so there are only female forensic
He
scientists.
retired because he had to, or because he wanted to?
No, yeah, because he was at that age.
He was at that age,
Yes.
okay, yeah.
So, you know, so we but you know, I think that a lot more females are actually getting into forensic
What
science.
is your theory as to why that is? So let
Because
me not
of-
use the word theory because I may be corrected by you.
Be-
What are your
because-
thoughts on why that is the
because
case?
of who we're organized. We can multitask. We are very observant. We are meticulous. I think it is all for all of those reasons. We are empathetic. We can solve problems because we're always solving problems in our households. You see, so I think it's natural for us to convey that to what the job demands, and we are resilient. We women. We're just badass.
Yes, we
yeah.
are.
So
Yes, we are. Joy was with you.
yes.
So
And
Joy is someone
Alika
else I
and
knew from
Tamara and
Hi, Joy.
Lakeisha.
Hi, Alika. Hi, Tamara.
And Lakeisha, and we have forensic assistants who are female. We have Venetia, and we have some new people coming in. So, and they're female too. Let me tell you.
Well, speaking of new people coming in, because I'm sure it's a field that it must be better now than it was a
Yes.
few years ago, where there was a big public outcry about the lack of, forensic scientists. So
Right.
I'm sure that has improved.
Yes.
But yesterday you were the main speaker, keynote speaker, featured speaker at the South Lewis Community College graduation ceremony. And how did you use that to encourage?
I used
more?
it to bring visibility to the laboratory and to bring visibility to the work of forensics in St. Lucia over from the 1970s. I think that our story as forensic scientists is seldom told, and it is usually told through the lenses of people who aren't involved in the field at all.
Oh, there
So
you
I
go.
wanted to be that vessel, to really tell the story of forensics, and also to let St. Lucians know that they have an amazing facility. They have amazing staff who are passionate and who are purposeful, and we are doing amazing work, and we are transforming not just St. Lucia but the region. We are we strive to be a center of excellence for forensic science, and when I tell you excellence, Candy, there's something that we will be working on for 2025. Look out, St. Lucia, when you hear about it. But my staff members, they had a little meeting and they came to me to make a pitch, and I knew about it, right? And I had some ideas of how I wanted, understanding how much time we have. It's happening next November, right? And I thought, we have so much time, so I started formulating some ideas. But let me tell you, they came into my office to make a pitch, and it just blew me away, and they just lit a fire,
So it's
And
something exciting we need to look
yes,
forward to.
but
in
they
2025.
strive for excellence. They have bought into. We achieved ISO 17025 accreditation. We're the only forensic laboratory in the OACS in these parts. The other one is in Guyana. So from Trinidad all the way up to Cayman Islands, we are the only ISO 17025 accredited forensic laboratory
Wow,
in the
that
region.
is
Yes, absolutely amazing because of the dedication of the team, and their commitment to quality work, to it being unbiased and ethical. So, I wanted to be the vessel to celebrate that, but to show the students that that doesn't just happen. We had a lot of struggles, we had a lot of trials, but we also had triumphs and we also had success. So I wanted to use the example of the laboratory to show them that life will knock you down, but you can get up and you can be excellent.
That as the amazing teacher that you are, I'm sure that landed really, really well
I hope
with
so. I hope
our
so.
future professionals in various fields who were graduating from the South Lewis Community College yesterday. And thank you for having been my teacher and having an impact on my life in the way that you did. And thank you for the work that you're doing to help solve what clearly is a big issue in
Yes.
St. Lucia these days. I'm sure your work is appreciated not just by me, but by the rest of the country.
Yes,
and
we're doing
thank
good
you.
work.
Yes.
Yes.
And thank you for being here today.
Thank
and
you for having me.
This is an open invitation to come back.
Thank you. It was great to be here. So I love to return.
Yay! Okay, guys, this has been The Wellness. I'm Candy Nicholas. Thank you for your time. It is appreciated as well, because there are, many other things you could have been doing with your time this evening. See you soon. Bye.
Season's greetings from us at DBS.